Welcome to the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to an all-new episode of the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast with Attorney Harlan Mitchell. I am your host, Mike Leon. Harlan here is the founder of Bama Estate Planning by Harlan D. Mitchell Legal Services. He's also obviously an Alabama native with decades of experience helping families protect their assets, avoid that unnecessary conflict, and prepare for life's unpredictable moments through thoughtful estate, elder law, and long-term care planning. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about something very important in the state of Alabama, the Kids Protection Plan, and how Alabama parents can make sure their children never enter the CPS or foster care system after an unexpected emergency. Harlan, it is good to see you. I'm sure this is something you get asked a lot from parents in the state. And when you meet with them, how do you help them understand what can happen to their children in those first few hours after, God forbid, an emergency, or if there's no guardians that are legally named?
Well, hello to you, Mike, and good to be here again, and thank you for having me. As a former police officer, one of the things I talk to parents about is I've worked numerous accidents in my career where we had to take the children into our custody and call DHR because we could not find any family members. And I strongly suggest they do a short-term guardian and a long-term guardian. They need to focus on who they want to come pick their children up in an emergency until the long-term guardians can get here.
It's a sad situation, and that's why we're doing this, so that we can give people the legal advice that they need. Can you also, Harlan, in that vein, explain why the Alabama law requires a little bit more than just simply telling someone who should care for your kids? Like what gaps are in there if nothing is written down?
Well, if nothing is written down, they cannot get medical treatment for the children. They can't enroll them in school. There's lots of things they can't do until they get a court order telling them that they have it. And under Alabama, the preferred method is to be named in a will, but it can also be in a writing that is witnessed and acknowledged, meaning notarized.
Right.
And we prepare a package that with all that, and we include laminated cards that have your short says you'd be like, I, Harlan Mitchell, have minor children at home or at school, and below are the people I'd like to have contacted. And what we do is then we list the two short-term guardians and the two long-term guardians. Then at the bottom on the back side of that card, it says if you can't reach any of these, to call my office. But,
Harlan, a second ago, you mentioned the police background and short-term guardians and taking the kids under custody. Can I ask you on that front, if close family lives out of state or they're not immediately reachable, what tends to happen in those instances when a short-term guardian isn't named?
well, we have to contact the Department of Human Resources here, and they come and take them and may place them with a foster family until a relative can get here.
Oh, okay. So that's the process. And I mentioned in the intro about the Kids Protection Plan. First, explain for the audience what that is and how does that plan give parents the control over who can step in right away versus someone who can serve as a long-term guardian?
Well, as I said, we draw up the paperwork nominating who the short-term guardians are and who the long-term guardians are, and setting out that they have the right to act as a parent and they receive all the rights enumerated under a statute in Alabama that gives them the parental authority to take care of their children. And then once that's signed and notarized, as I said, we prepare laminated cards and ask that they keep it with their driver's license. And then it's just a matter of discussing that with the people who you want to place in those positions and making sure they're willing to do it.
Harlan, I'm sure you get some common worries from parents out there on family dynamics. How can you or how do you advise them on proper planning so that way it prevents disputes or maybe even unwanted relatives from stepping in?
It makes it very difficult for them to file something in court contesting it. We have in our will that we include in this plan them set out, since statute recommends it be done by will in Alabama. We do that plus the setting. It makes it very difficult because we're going to set out the reasons why, and a lot of it is when people consider who they want to appoint, they need to consider the ability to care for them, the health of the parties being named guardians. Are the children comfortable with those people? And do they have the means necessary to help take care of them? Also, do they are your values similar? Are their values similar to the values you have that you want your children raised by?
Harlan, let's talk a little bit about children's inheritance as well, because I'm sure the planning process of this can help protect a child's inheritance, not just the physical care, as we mentioned. So, how do we do that? How do we explain to families out there about the planning will protect the child's inheritance, so that way they get money that's managed responsibly until they're old enough to actually access it?
Well, one of the things I recommend is they have a separate money manager for the children, and that they appoint somebody they feel comfortable with that has the financial knowledge and the ability to handle finances and keep it separate. So you've got a checks and balance system. You got somebody caring for the children, and then you got somebody who's managing the children's monies. And that's one of the things I recommend that we do. And that's also, we nominate that person as well.
Yeah. Harlan, can you share an example, obviously without giving the intricate client details, but an example of a situation where that clear guardianship plan kept children out of CPS, foster care, and what made the plan work so smoothly?
I had a family that came to see me. We did the child protection plan. The father was deployed. The mother was in a car wreck. The two children were in the back seat in their car seats. She was injured and had to go to the hospital. But when they pulled her wallet and pulled her driver's license, it had my card behind it. They called the police officer on the scene, called the top person as the short term guardian. They came and picked the children up from the scene, and that made the difference.
Wow, what a story, man. I was not expecting that, but man, it's great to hear that she did have your business card there, and obviously the children were safe and secured. How does then, Harlan, how do you broach that conversation with families, especially blended families, about guardianship, or single parents out there, or situations where maybe where the parents don't agree on who should serve as the guardian? How do you broach those convos?
I just sit them down and talk to them about who do they believe is the best person to care for their children. And with blended families, sometimes the best way to do that is, especially if each have children from different spouses, that they may need to consider about doing separate protection plans for their children rather than blended. Uh, I let them make the decisions. I give them the pros and cons of it. That sometimes family members are resentful for taking another parent's children. Sometimes they're not. But you need to just consider who has the values, who has the physical abilities. We don't want an 80-year-old grandparent trying to take care of a 3-year-old.
Right.
They just sometimes don't have the physical stamina or physical ability to do so.
Yeah.
And we just talk about what's going to be best for them and their children. And I try to remind them, you can't worry about hurting families' feelings right now. You got to do what's best for your children.
That's right. Best for the kids. For the parent that's still listening out there, and maybe they haven't made a formal decision yet, they're listening to you talk about this, Harlan. What do you want them to think about as they choose the people they trust the most to protect the said children that we've been talking about?
I think one of the most important things is you need to think about who has the ability to care for your children, who the children like and feel comfortable with, who has similar values for you that you want your children to have, and then make that decision based on that.
Yeah. It's great advice. Harlan, thank you so much for the time, the insights. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast. If you want to learn more, you want to connect with Harlan and all the team members over there at Bama Estate Planning, do me a favor, visit bamaestateplanning.com. You're going to find all the resources to help protect your family, your assets, and give you that peace of mind. Do me one more favor before you go. Hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review, comment, share the episode with that Alabama family member that needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.